I said I'm losing my friends. I've got a lot to learn, I've got a lot to mend, and I'll keep chasing my heart back to the start. Maybe
Alrighty guys, how's it going? Welcome to the mountains of Spain, training on an altitude training camp, and one of the guys here is a current GB squad member and a three-time Olympic champion, Mr. Pete Reed. Thank you very much for joining me, Pete.
Pleasure.
So we're going to talk about three topics today, two of which kind of overlap a bit. Then we'll finally talk about rowing, obviously Pete's rower. To start off with, we're going to talk about a subject which isn't the most popular thing to talk about, but actually it's something that most people who take part in any sport will experience in their time, and that's of course injury. I, for example, had the compartment syndrome surgery done about 2 years ago, and this is really relevant to Pete at the moment because, for those of you who don't know, post Rio, Pete had surgery on his hips. Is that right, Pete?
Yeah, it is. So I think when you're, I'm not old, of course I'm not old, but I'm older. When I was young, I hardly saw any injury. You know, your body regenerates very well, and for a while you sort of take your body for granted. Please God, don't take your body for granted, anybody. But for a period of time leading up to Rio, even a number of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, I knew my hips were getting stiffer and stiffer. It presented as a bit of back pain, but it was manageable. You know, I had some cortisone injections
To numb the pain.
So what did that do? That reduced inflammation in the hips.
Okay.
And lots of tractioning, lots of physio work, lots of work around the area and strengthening different areas. But eventually I came back from Rio, made the call on wanting to carry on for Tokyo, got back in the boat on the 2nd of January 2017, and I could barely roll up the slide. You know, my hip flexion was so poor, and one of the key things you need for rowing is 120 degrees of, at least, of hip flexion. I was so far off that, so on the 16th of January 2017 I had my first operation on my left side, and then on the 27th of February on my right side. That's the first operation I've had, and the first time I've had to go through proper rehab, you know, stepping away from the team, being unfit, having to motivate yourself, training with support, but you feel very isolated and on your own, which is tremendously tough for an athlete in rowing, which is a team sport. And my whole adult life I've been around amazing athletes, and it's inspiring, and it's easy to train when you're in a group. When you're by yourself, it's tough, and you'll know that as well from your operations. You've got the scars here to prove it.
No, completely. And one thing you mentioned there was the rehabilitation process, because I, for example, when I had my surgery done, I had quite short-term goals where I wanted to get back in a boat as quickly as possible, and the recovery process was supposed to be about 6 to 8 weeks, and I basically ignored how my body was and tried to get in a boat about 4 to 6 weeks, and as a result I ended up missing more training, and it took me longer to get back to where I wanted to be. So that was a disappointment for me. But one thing I'm interested to know about is your rehab and stuff. You say obviously it's a lonely type process, you're training on your own kind of thing. How did you keep yourself motivated through that kind of period?
I hold my hands up, that was really hard. The best way to stay motivated is to make yourself small promises. You know, you can make yourself a big promise, like you wanted to go to the head of the river, and I want to get another Olympic gold medal. But you need to break it down, make yourself some promises to what you want to achieve by the end of the day, what you want to achieve by the end of the week. These are much, much smaller goals. If you try and think about that big goal when you can't even get in and out of a car, you can barely walk. You know, these are completely unrealistic dreams. It's like pipe dream stuff. So scale it back, make yourself a promise for the end of the day, make yourself a promise for the end of the week, and you can chip away at those. It makes things very achievable, very doable. Set yourself a goal that you even know that you can achieve, and then maybe something by the end of the month that perhaps is going to be a bit of a stretch, and then you'll get it. But you made a good point there about how much pressure you put yourself under trying to get to something that you wanted to do. Once you're injured, if you're having an operation, if you're ill, listen to the medics. You can write off those short-term aims. You need to listen to the medics, listen to your body, be realistic, take a little step back, stop being so myopic and blinkered about what you want to achieve, and taking the bigger picture. And that's so important. You've got one body, and your health is so much more important than rowing. There's more to life, and you've got to think about that afterwards as well.
No, I completely agree with that. That's one thing I definitely learned, was actually the short-term goals you need to try and forget about, and it's all about the long-term kind of goals that you have in mind, the back of your mind. And obviously your body you need to take as much care of as you can, because once your sport's finished, obviously you need to make sure your body's 100% as long as you can, because otherwise you're going to be in more pain when you're older, kind of thing, and that's just something you don't want to put yourself through, kind of thing. We're going to move on. Actually, one thing I really want to talk about is kind of links into like the goals kind of thing and motivation kind of thing. I know Pete, for example, was really interested in his photography, and so I'll leave a link below as to where you guys can check out some of Pete's photos. And it's actually, some of them are actually, I'm not even joking, they're really, really good, some of these photos, so I really highly recommend checking them out. Little plug for Pete there. So
thanks very much.
No worries.
That's why we do it.
And but yeah, so one thing which I found actually was really important for me when I was obviously training by myself kind of thing, and you're injured and you're trying to get back into it, a hobby is actually really, really important to kind of like, because obviously once you're not rowing, actually it's also healthy just to be interested in something else as well, to keep your mind kind of ticking over in that kind of field. So how do you feel like kind of your photography, has that helped in any way? Like
yeah, certainly. It's an outlet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hobbies are great. You've got to find a balance in life. You've got to find enjoyment. A happy athlete is a fast athlete, and you can't, however focused you are. And I've talked about some of my colleagues in the team that I've seen. So many different personality types. The very, very best, the very fastest, the very happiest, the most fulfilled. They all had a balance. They all had something else, somewhere to go, somewhere to have downtime. Rowing is just, it's too big, it's too much, it encompasses your whole life, and you need to have a little bit of escapism. It can't be everything. And I was thinking about it fairly recently. I lived my whole adult life either in immediate pain that I put myself in, or fatigue. So that's too much. You need to find something and a hobby that you can do when you're tired, to take yourself away from it and have a bit of mental relaxation. So a safe place, something calm, where every single time we jump on the ergo, every time we go and race, your body is you're wired, you're ready to go, and that's not a state that your central nervous system should be in all the time. It should be in for a fraction of a period of time. So anything you can do to be calm and quiet and safe and peaceful, find a hobby where you can be in that state, and your recovery will be amazing, your performances will improve.